It's me, Professor Tree, and today I'll be going over the top 10 worst Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise. Let's go! In our number 10 spot is Garbodor. I mean, just look at him, he's literally made out of trash, but don't worry buddy, I know the feeling. Just kidding, in our number 10 spot is actually PIDOVE. Like, its evolutions are good, don't get me wrong, but in its first form, it's like budget Pidgey and just not in a good way. Like, its early game move pool kinda sucks, and honestly the times I've used this Pokemon it felt like even more of a chore to evolve it, not because it has any annoying steps to evolve it such as trading or doing a certain thing a number of times, but just because it always felt like a waste of a team spot. But that's not all. A non-in-game reason I don't like this Pokemon is because of how smug and annoying it was during the Pokemon Black and White anime, from trying to take Pikachu's spot as Ash's bestie to just being kind of a jerk. I do not like this little guy at all, and that's why it's in our number 10 spot on the list. In our number 9 spot is Pikachu. Now before you go into the comments and say, "But Professor Tree, Pikachu's really cool and stuff," hear me out. In-game Pikachu is just meh, ignoring its evos much like Ash did. Its one crazy move Volt Tackle is locked behind a breeding wall which makes it even harder to get. But that's not just me being picky, because despite it being the mascot for the franchise and the anime as a whole, it just isn't remotely powerful at all, and it's just kind of disappointing when compared to mascots of other Pokemon style franchises being way stronger, like the Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! But my final reason is Ash's Pikachu in the anime is just so busted beyond belief to the point where you could honestly class it as a pseudo-legendary with how powerful it is. From beating a rock type in the Indigo League anime to just escaping any Pikachu traps that are supposedly Pikachu-proof the Team Rocket throws at it, and yet in-game it's so incredibly weak, which is why it's earned its number 9 spot on the list. And up in 8th place is Dragonite. While being a decent pseudo-legendary, it has a few flaws that really grind my gears, the main one being that its entire design is just fat Charizard. Like, my guy really saw Charizard's design and said, "is for me." In this case, like the similarities, it's not even funny. But that's not all. It looks like Barney the Dinosaur but orange with tiny wings, and yet it gets the dragon typing, but my boy Charizard, who's objectively better in both design and the move pool, gets the flying type instead of being fire dragon type. And finally, its evolutions just make no sense, as it starts out as a rather cute Dratini, I mean look how boopable that little snoot is, to the incredibly elegant looking Dragonair, and then finally the rotund and derpy looking Dragonite. Like, what happened? Did my guy move into his local McDonald's and just go, wow, this is really good? Like, was the Wi-Fi that good? So yeah, Dragonite's at number 8 on my list, fight me. And at number 7 is yet again a fine example of Pokemon Evos going in reverse, Snivy, as it starts out as both a really cool and cute looking starter grass Pokemon, but then for reasons that currently escape me, the Pokemon design team must have been like, "Hey Kevin, hear me out, what if long?" And the director was like, "Yes!" And that's what happened to this boy's potential. Much like Ash after Brock's cooking, its potential was immediately flushed down the toilet, going from a cool bipedal lizard with an attitude, to a longer boy with stubby legs, to finally 0 legs and just a snake with a superiority complex. Like, come on, you had so much potential, why did you do this? And when compared to other grass-type starters, it's definitely a massive letdown, as when its design was revealed back when I was Student Tree and not Professor Tree, it was one of my favourite Pokemon designs I've ever seen, until it evolved. Truly a dark, dark day for the Pokemon franchise, and that's the reason this guy landed its number 7 spot on my list. Falling into our number 6 spot is Wishy-Washy, as in its default form, it's really unimpressive and just overall very meh, and if you like it in its school form, be prepared to never see it, as for that to happen it needs to be on the field to change forms, and with its terrible defensive stats, that's not happening unless the RNG gods throw you a bone. But that's not all, there are just objectively way better fish-type Pokemon in the franchise such as Sharpedo and Basculin, so overall it's just a really disappointing Pokemon with nothing too crazy about it, and it's sad that it was given such little care when being made by the company. And my final reason is because how lacking in luster its design is, being a monochromatic colour palette of blue and grey in its default form, and just kind of not really getting my attention, as it looks like a regular fish with nothing particularly special about it, earning it the number 6 spot on my list. And my number 5 position is Magikarp. I feel like none of you are going to sit there and defend the one single merit of Magikarp being that it can evolve into Gyarados, as, I mean, come on, that happens at level 20, and with its only move being Splash, it's a tedious and painful process if it isn't already a decently high level. And like the Pokemon itself, it's just a joke to be honest, with it being like a fodder Pokemon at best when you're just trying to level it up to get a Gyarados, and when you see it in an anime, its existence is purely for comedic relief. So that's why it's got its well-deserved spot on my list, as it's a really disappointing and kind of just stupid Pokemon. In our number 4 spot is Psyduck. This Pokemon is just flat out of the gate really stupid, as in its in-game move pool is trash, and I'm not talking about Trubbish levels of bad, I'm talking full-on Garbodor levels of bad, and in general, it's just a really boring Pokemon to have on your team when there are way better Psychic-type Pokemon out there. Some other non-game related reasons is the levels of power scaling for this Pokemon are actually stupid, as in the fairly recent Pokemon movie Detective Pikachu, PSYDUCK straight up levels a mountain because it got stressed out, and that's just so dumb considering how common this Pokemon is in the Pokemon universe. Like, imagine how many PSYDUCK-caused natural disasters must occur in the Pokemon region if they're all supposedly this powerful, and since they are all from Kanto, it makes me question why Team Rocket is even chasing Pikachu in the first place, like instead of just catching every PSYDUCK and using that instead. I mean, if they can level mountains, I'm sure that any government would give you whatever you want. Like, Giovanni must be a real idiot, and that's why it's landed its number 4 spot on my list, as it just doesn't make any kind of sense, at all. In our 3rd place spot is Bellibolt. I mean, just look at him. When it was first revealed during Iona's streams on the official YouTube channel, I thought these were its eyes. Oh boy was I mistaken, as based on the information Iona provides us to help us guess, we end up learning these are fake, and that it's realised are the little yellow nostril looking dots above its mouth, and when you see that you just can't unsee it. Like, honestly, if Pokemon ever made a horror game, use this guy. He creeps me out beyond belief with his deadpan stare and unsettling smile. Like it's something out of the SCP Foundation, honestly. So yeah, regardless if it's great in the meta, keep this thing away from me. I will choose violence if it remotely tries to be my friend, and that's why it's at my number 3 spot on my list. And at number 2 on the list is Muck, so you're all probably expecting me to go, hee funny name, go boo, and you'd be right, because I have the sense of humour of a child and I'm not afraid to admit it. But yes, outside of its name, I'm not the first person to poke fun at the sentient slime ball, and I definitely won't be the last. Like, my dude looks like he would die if I spilled some small drops of water on him like the Wicked Witch in the Wizard of Oz. Not to mention, it's just really gross looking. I mean, it's a living pile of poisonous purple goop. Nobody's gonna be out here saying, it's my favourite Pokemon. You know who you are. And the worrying part is our boy and fellow Pokemon researcher Samuel Oak lets this gross pile of what can only be described as dear god don't hurt the children climb all over him on a regular basis. Now what this says about Oak is up to the audience, but all I'm gonna say is he's probably not got the healthiest lungs, and that's why Muck is number 2 on my list, as it's just gross and I hate it. And finally, in our number 1 spot is Kyurem Black. Oh boy, the things I can say about this Pokemon. On paper, it's cool, I like its design, and its role in the movie with Keldeo and the other guys, I can't remember their names, is really good, it does a great job. But one really annoying thing about this Pokemon landed it at my number 1 spot. And that is, despite having chunky arms made for punching, one which is literally made of ice, it cannot learn the move Ice Punch, and I hate that, as in the movies and anime, I'm sure we've seen it punch more than once, which makes me question, why? Why give it arms that are made for violence and then not let it punch things? But outside of that, the fact that in-game to get this Pokemon I have to fuse my already existing cool-looking Kyurem with an already cool-looking Zekrom really annoys me, as it's kind of lazy and just kind of feels like not a good change or exchange for those two Pokemon. A great example of this is Hoopa's regular form to its Unbound form, or the Sword and Shield legendaries without their sword and respective shields, and overall it ruined the Pokemon for me, and that's why it's at number 1 on my list. So that's all from me today, trainers. Tell me, do you agree with the choices I made and the reasoning behind them, or do you think there's a worse Pokemon? Comment it down below, and if you're new here, please like and subscribe, and do not forget to click that bell icon. Goodbye!